Today we will delve into a mysterious tale of hidden love, quiet betrayal, and a shocking murder in a small, peaceful community in Asheville, North Carolina. Wyatt Morrison, 48, the CEO of a rapidly growing biotech company, had a successful career. Beyond his professional accomplishments, Wyatt was also known for his passionate love of contemporary art. However, behind this polished exterior, his 17-year marriage to Wyatt Morrison, a renowned psychologist, was beginning to show cracks that could no longer be hidden. Lately, Wyatt had become more withdrawn, carrying secrets no one could reach. Rumors started swirling about a shady relationship between him and Calla Fitzpatrick. An ambitious young assistant, Calla stood out not only for her beauty and intelligence, but had quickly become the person Wyatt trusted the most. Their secret meetings and late-night phone calls had made Elodie suspicious, although she tried to maintain her faith in her husband. Yet with each secret Wyatt kept, the distance between them only grew larger. A few days before the tragedy, Wyatt had planned to attend an important art auction in New York. During a dinner at Asheville's Artisanal with his wife and friends, Elodie noticed Wyatt becoming uncomfortable when she accidentally mentioned Calla's name. The atmosphere turned tense, but Wyatt swiftly shifted to another topic. Keeping his calm demeanor, those were the last peaceful moments before his life was about to be completely turned upside down. On the morning of November 15th, 2023, Trent Hargrove, Wyatt's longtime friend and business partner, came to his house to discuss an important contract. Trent had been Wyatt's trusted confidant for over 15 years, helping him through many challenges. But as he stood in front of the quiet mansion on the outskirts of Asheville, Trent immediately sensed an unusual stillness. Wyatt, always punctual, was nowhere to be found. After knocking several times with no response, Trent decided to use the spare key Wyatt had given him for emergencies. The door creaked open, and Trent stepped into an eerily silent space, as if time itself had stopped. He called out Wyatt's name loudly, but only the echo of his voice bounced back from the empty walls. With every slow step, the dread inside him grew heavier, as if his gut knew something horrific was about to unfold. The door creaked again, like an invisible warning in the stillness. "Wyatt!" Trent shouted, but only silence answered him. His heart pounded in his chest as he rushed toward the study, where he believed Wyatt would be. The sight before him left Trent frozen. Wyatt lay motionless on the floor, blood pooling into a dark crimson stain across the tiles. A chair was overturned, papers scattered everywhere, and splashes of blood streaked across the walls, the clear signs of a brutal struggle. Wyatt's body bore deep stab wounds, evidence that he had fought until his very last breath. Trent's hands trembled as he gripped his phone tightly. He dialed 911, his voice hoarse. "There's been a murder at Wyatt Morrison's house. He's dead." As he followed the dispatcher's instructions, a flood of questions overwhelmed his mind. Who could have done this? Why did Wyatt meet such a tragic end? His once vibrant friend now lay cold on the floor, a reality too painful for Trent to accept. His eyes landed on Wyatt's favorite painting, now spattered with blood. The abstract artwork, once a source of creative inspiration for Wyatt, had now become a grim symbol of the tragedy that had just unfolded. Only a few minutes later, the wail of police sirens and ambulances pierced the quiet night. Still shaking, Trent led them into the living room where Wyatt's lifeless body lay, a tragic period at the end of his friend's story. Paramedics quickly confirmed that Wyatt was dead, while investigators began collecting evidence, fingerprints, blood samples, and every possible trace. Every inch of the house was carefully combed for clues. Detective Gwen Turner renowned for her ability to notice the smallest of details, arrived at the scene with her partner, Derek Palmer, a seasoned expert in complex cases. The moment Gwen stepped in, she sensed the underlying complexity. "This isn't just a simple murder," she whispered to Derek. The disarray of the furniture, the blood splatters, everything indicated a violent struggle. Wyatt's body was cold and stiff, the deep wounds a testament to a fierce fight. Derek pointed to a large, bloodied kitchen knife lying near the body. "This is the murder weapon," he stated, his tone calm but serious. The two carefully collected the knife, preserving any fingerprints and blood traces that could offer leads. Gwen knelt down, closely examining each stab wound, committing every detail to memory. She knew this case wouldn't be straightforward. The sparse initial evidence already hinted at a carefully planned crime. "We need to dig deep into Wyatt's life to uncover the secrets he might have been hiding," she said decisively. Derek turned to Gwen, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll need to scrutinize every corner," he affirmed. Gwen nodded, fully aware that a challenging investigation awaited them. Shortly after, the forensics team arrived at the scene, bringing advanced tools to collect every trace of evidence. They swiftly began their work, dusting for fingerprints, using ultraviolet light to detect hidden bloodstains, and gathering DNA samples from suspicious areas. Gwen watched every movement closely, her eyes missing no detail, knowing that even the smallest mistake could send the investigation into a dead end. Gwen turned to Trent Hargrove, the one who had first discovered Wyatt's body. Trent's face was pale, still shaken by the shock. "Did you notice anything unusual when you entered the house?" Gwen asked, her voice gentle but sharp. Trent hesitated, trying to recall every detail. There was a strange feeling, like something was off Wyatt. He was always punctual. "I just don't understand why it was so silent today." Gwen listened intently, taking careful notes of Trent's every word, her eyes never leaving him, searching for any clues that could shed light on the case. "Wyatt had planned to meet you. Yeah. Did anyone else know about this meeting?" she asked, her voice calm but laced with suspicion. Trent shook his head. "No, I don't think so." After thoroughly searching the house, Gwen and Derek found no signs of forced entry. They exchanged glances, coming to another possibility. Wyatt may have known and trusted his attacker. "We need to narrow down the list of suspects," Derek murmured. They checked Wyatt's phone and found it on the kitchen counter. Gwen carefully put on gloves, picked up the phone, and examined the screen. "We need to go through his recent calls and messages," she said firmly, determined not to miss a single detail. Outside, news vans had gathered, creating a buzz of activity in the community. A crowd had formed, their eyes filled with both curiosity and concern. Waiting for the latest updates, Gwen stepped out, maintaining her composure amidst a flurry of questions from reporters. "We're in the early stages of the investigation and cannot release any further information," she stated briefly, refusing to comment further and keeping the gravity of the situation under wraps. As the first day drew to a close, Gwen's team had gathered some crucial evidence, but many questions remained unanswered. Who killed Wyatt Morrison, and why Gwen stood silently in Wyatt's office, her eyes focused on the gray walls, as if trying to find answers in the enveloping silence. "We need to dig deeper," she said to Derek, her voice filled with determination. "We need to look into Wyatt's past, the secrets he may have been hiding, and all the relationships surrounding him." The first person they interviewed was Elodie Morrison, Wyatt's wife of 17 years. Elodie entered the interrogation room with a tense expression, trying to remain composed. but her eyes betrayed her worry. Gwen looked directly at her, her voice stern. "We need to know more about the relationship between you and your husband." Elodie faced Gwen, her voice trembling but still trying to stay strong. "We sometimes had conflicts, but my love for him was always deep." However, her eyes briefly showed a hint of sorrow. As if she was hiding something, Gwen carefully watched every gesture, every expression on Elodie's face, searching for any signs of unusual emotions. "Did Wyatt ever mention his relationship with Calla Fitzpatrick?" Gwen asked next, her eyes never leaving Elodie. Elodie closed her eyes briefly, as if trying to suppress the surge of emotions rising within her. "Yes," she answered softly, her voice shaking. "He had a secret affair with her." Gwen remained silent for a moment, her sharp eyes observing Elodie's every reaction. "He hid this from me for months," Elodie continued, her voice choking. "And recently, he was diagnosed with a serious illness. He kept it a secret, even from me." Gwen quickly noticed the inconsistencies in Elodie's statement. "Where were you on the night Wyatt was killed?" she asked directly, her tone calm but firm. Elodie took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I was at home, watching TV, doing paperwork. Then I went to bed around 10 p.m. Gwen didn't miss the tension in Elodie's voice, sensing the underlying worry, as if she was hiding something. Although Elodie appeared cooperative, Gwen grew increasingly suspicious. When asked about their financial situation, Elodie answered confidently, "We had no money issues. Both of us had stable incomes." But her eyes briefly showed exhaustion, as if something was weighing heavily on her mind. "Even though I was deeply hurt by Wyatt and Calla's affair," she added, her voice dropping, "I never thought about harming him." Gwen didn't overlook the subtle signs. A slight furrow of the brow, a fleeting glance, all pointing to a deeply hidden resentment. The revelations about Wyatt's relationship with Calla and his secret illness only complicated the investigation further. Gwen paused for a moment, her eyes still fixed on Elodie. "You say you didn't know much about their relationship, but it seems you know quite a bit about what happened," Gwen remarked, her voice calm but sharp. Elodie flinched slightly, her gaze wavering before she tried to maintain her composure. "I only know what Wyatt told me. He didn't hide things, but he also didn't share much." Elodie's conflicting attitude heightened Gwen and Derek's suspicions about her motives. "We need to dig deeper into Calla Fitzpatrick," Gwen said to Derek as they left the interrogation room. "She could be the key to solving this puzzle." Calla Fitzpatrick, an ambitious young assistant, had recently moved to Asheville from Kansas. At 25, she was working hard to make a name for herself in the world of business and art. Her relationship with Wyatt provided her with crucial backing, helping her rise quickly. Since being hired by Wyatt, Calla's life had changed significantly. She skillfully crafted her image and maximized her connections to advance her career. On November 17, 2023, Calla Fitzpatrick was summoned to the Asheville police station for questioning Detective Derek, with his vast experience in complex cases, led the interrogation. "Hello, Calla," Derek began, his eyes carefully observing her. "We need to understand more about your relationship with Wyatt Morrison." Calla entered the room, her worry evident, but she tried to remain composed. "Yes, I'll answer all your questions," she said, her voice soft, but unable to hide the underlying tension. Derek continued, his tone calm but sharp. "What role did Wyatt play in your career, and why was your relationship with him so important?" Calla furrowed her brow, carefully considering her words, fully aware that each answer could be crucial. During the conversation, Calla admitted, "Wyatt and I were in a romantic relationship for over a year. It was Complicated, she sighed, her eyes drifting into the distance, recalling memories tangled with both love and turmoil. Wyatt was very kind. He helped me both financially and emotionally. He paid my rent, supported my education, and helped me get into art events. Calla paused, choosing her words cautiously. I know our relationship put a strain on his marriage, and I deeply regret that. Derek pressed further. You knew this was severely affecting Wyatt's marriage, didn't you? Calla nodded slowly. Yes, I did. But we felt connected, and this relationship wasn't just about money. It meant something to me. Something. Derek's tone grew more serious. Where were you on the night Wyatt was killed? Calla hesitated, then responded, I was at home, working on an art project. I ordered food from a nearby restaurant and didn't leave the house. Derek noticed the anxiety in her eyes. We'll verify that, he said, his voice calm but challenging. The interrogation ended, but Gwen and Derek still sensed that Calla was hiding something. As they stepped out of the room, Gwen remarked thoughtfully, We need to double-check her story. There are too many unclear points. Derek nodded in agreement. She might know more than she's letting on. Gwen decided to verify Calla's alibi by checking the phone records and interviewing neighbors to confirm whether she was indeed home on the night of Wyatt's murder. Simultaneously, the police began reviewing Calla's financial records to look for any unusual transactions connected to Wyatt. A significant discovery came to light. Calla had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, a condition that could affect her emotional regulation. However, when confronted, Calla remained steadfast. I never had any intention of harming Wyatt. Gwen observed her carefully, wondering if Calla was hiding something deeper. While reviewing the evidence, Gwen and Derek found Calla's story still had several gaps. Through further analysis, they uncovered a potential connection between Wyatt and Franklin Porter, a former business partner who might have had a motive. Frank Porter, a wealthy real estate developer, was known for his ruthless business tactics. He had once worked with Wyatt on a major project, but their relationship had always been tense and lacking transparency. There were rumors of a complicated personal relationship, although Frank had repeatedly denied them. On November 18, 2023, Frank Porter was summoned to the police station for questioning. Detective Gwen Turner sat across from him, her gaze sharp and vigilant. Mr. Porter, can you tell us about your relationship with Wyatt Morrison? Gwen asked, her tone calm but firm. Frank entered the room with an air of confidence, but his eyes betrayed a hint of nervousness. We worked together, he began, his voice hesitant, as though carefully choosing his words. But when he started his relationship with Calla, I felt betrayed. Frank admitted that jealousy and anger had flared up when he found out about Wyatt and Calla's affair. This revelation surprised Gwen and Derek. Why didn't you mention this earlier? Gwen questioned, her voice laced with suspicion. Frank looked away, hesitating before answering. I wanted to protect my reputation. Then, I received a diagnosis for a serious illness. I believe Wyatt was the source of the infection. Anger and feelings of betrayal had consumed him for a long time. Gwen and Derek exchanged glances, sensing the complexity in Frank's story. We need to cross-check his statements, Gwen whispered to Derek. There are still many unclear points. When asked about his whereabouts on the night of Wyatt's murder, Frank provided an alibi. He had attended a business dinner at the Grove Park Inn with several colleagues who could confirm his presence. Gwen nodded, making a note. We'll verify this information, she said, her eyes fixed on Frank. Despite Frank's seemingly solid alibi, Gwen remained skeptical. You claim you never thought of using violence, Gwen emphasized, but emotions can be complicated, especially when one feels betrayed. Frank hesitated, then responded, Yes, I felt hurt and angry, but I'm not the kind of person who resorts to violence. After the interrogation, Gwen and Derek returned to the office to analyze the clues they had gathered. While reviewing the details, an urgent report came in from Mrs. Martha James, Wyatt's neighbor. "A blood-stained shirt was found in my backyard," Mrs. James said over the phone, her voice filled with panic. Gwen and Derek immediately set off, recognizing that this could be a critical piece of evidence. On the rainy morning of November 20th, 2023, Gwen and Derek arrived at the scene. The shirt, belonging to a man, was soaked in blood and showed signs that it had been worn during the murder. They carefully placed the shirt in an evidence bag, preserving all traces before sending it to the forensics lab for analysis, hoping to uncover the killer's DNA. Gwen looked at the shirt, feeling that this might be the turning point in the case. "We could be getting closer to the truth," she said, her voice filled with determination. The forensic team worked tirelessly, and within hours, the results came in. The blood on the shirt matched Wyatt Morrison's blood type. Even more startling, the DNA found on the collar and sleeves was directly linked to Elodie Morrison. Wyatt's wife Gwen and Derek exchanged glances. "This evidence changes everything," Gwen said, her voice thoughtful but resolute. "We need to question Elodie again." Derek nodded, realizing that this discovery could flip the case entirely, taking it in an unexpected direction. On November 21st, 2023, Elodie was called back to the police station. As she entered the interrogation room, her face showed clear signs of tension, no longer able to maintain her usual calm demeanor. Gwen placed the blood-stained shirt on the table, her voice sharp. "Mrs. Elodie, we found your DNA on this shirt. How do you explain that?" Elodie's face began to crack, but she tried to keep her voice steady. "I don't know why my DNA is on that shirt. I'm being framed." However, Gwen noticed the tremor in Elodie's voice, a sign too telling to ignore. "Tell us exactly what happened on the night Wyatt was killed," Gwen demanded, her voice tense but still controlled. Under pressure, Elodie's story began to shift. "I argued with Wyatt," she admitted, "about his relationship with Calla Fitzpatrick. He became aggressive, and I had to defend myself." Gwen frowned, noticing several inconsistencies. "But the crime scene evidence suggests this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment attack. Everything seems to have been carefully planned," she remarked, her sharp gaze following Elodie's every reaction. Elodie hesitated, struggling to maintain her calm tone. "I just wanted to protect myself. I don't know anything about this." Gwen didn't miss the contradictions in her words. "If it was self-defense, why are there signs of premeditation?" Derek added, his voice steady but firm. Elodie didn't respond immediately, her eyes shifting as she faced the mounting pressure, seemingly searching for a way to justify her actions. The inconsistencies in Elodie's testimony and the evidence made Gwen and Derek increasingly suspicious of her role in Wyatt's death. Gwen proposed a new approach. "We need to dig deeper," she said, "and see if there's anything in Elodie's finances that could provide a stronger motive." With the new evidence in hand, they reviewed Elodie's financial records and uncovered a suspicious detail. Elodie had recently purchased a large life insurance policy for Wyatt, worth $500,000. Derek looked over the report, his voice low but pointed. "This doesn't seem normal, especially with their relationship being so strained." Gwen nodded in agreement. "It looks like she had a very clear motive." The suspicions surrounding Elodie began to pile up like an unavoidable wave. The blood-stained shirt and DNA results had become the key pieces of evidence, placing Elodie as the prime suspect. By December 3rd, 2023, the detectives had a significant breakthrough. The financial records revealed that Elodie had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on Wyatt shortly before his death. Furthermore, just days after Wyatt's murder, a large sum of $300,000 had been transferred from Wyatt's account to that of Franklin "Frank" Porter. Gwen and Derek realized that the complexity of the case had deepened. "It seems like we're getting closer to the truth," Gwen stated, her voice firm. "We need to verify this further and prepare for another round of questioning with both Elodie and Frank." Derek agreed, knowing that the truth likely lay in the web of financial secrets and complicated relationships. "This is clear evidence of a cover-up," Gwen remarked. "We need to summon Frank again." This time, they didn't hesitate to confront Frank with the concrete evidence of the suspicious money transfer. "Mr. Frank," Derek began, his voice heavy with pressure, "how do you explain this payment?" Under the piercing gazes of Gwen and Derek, Frank finally cracked. "Elodie paid me to fabricate the story about my affair with Wyatt and about him infecting me with an illness," he confessed, his voice weighed down by guilt. He admitted that it had all been a lie. He had agreed to participate in Elodie's plan in exchange for the money she had promised. "I needed the money, and Elodie knew that," Frank said, his voice trembling. "I didn't realize things would go this far." Frank's confession left Gwen and Derek both stunned and relieved, as it confirmed what they had long suspected. Elodie not only had a financial motive, but she had orchestrated a complex scheme to mislead the investigation. "We've got enough to arrest her now," Gwen said, her voice filled with determination. "It's time to put an end to this game." Frank's admission had exposed the hidden layers of the case, proving that Elodie had meticulously crafted a story to cover up her crime. "She thought she could outsmart us," Derek muttered, acknowledging the intricate plan Elodie had devised. Gwen nodded, her expression resolute. "We need to confront her immediately," Gwen declared. "This is our chance to bring the truth to light." On December 6, 2023, the detectives carefully prepared for a new interrogation with Elodie. When she entered the room, Gwen was ready with a slew of new evidence. "Elodie," Gwen began, her voice calm but sharp, "we've uncovered several new pieces of evidence." At first, Elodie tried to deny all accusations, but each of Gwen's questions pierced through her defenses like a sharp blade, unraveling her carefully constructed facade. Under relentless pressure, Elodie's calm demeanor slowly crumbled. Her face turned pale, and her eyes dimmed as she finally confessed, "I made up Wyatt's illness to destroy his reputation." Elodie continued, her voice trembling, "I couldn't stand the thought of him betraying me with Calla. I wanted everyone to see him for the villain he was, someone unworthy of their love and respect." Gwen listened intently, her gaze never leaving Elodie, knowing that the investigation had finally reached the core of the truth. Gwen pressed on, her gaze unrelenting. "Why did you do it?" Elodie sighed, the bitterness and pain clear on her face. "Wyatt betrayed me with Calla Fitzpatrick," she said, her voice shaking. "The humiliation and anger, it pushed me over the edge." She paused for a moment, then continued, "I paid Frank to fabricate the story about Wyatt." Gwen, her eyes sharp, pushed further. "And what happened that night?" Elodie took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to reveal the truth. "I went to see Wyatt," she began, her voice breaking with each word. "I confronted him about everything, about Calla, the lies, the humiliation he had caused me. We argued, he flew into a rage and threatened to ruin me. I don't know what came over me, but I remember grabbing the knife." She paused, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want to kill him, but I couldn't stop." Elodie lowered her head, her voice choked with emotion, though now there was nothing left to hide. "I confronted Wyatt, and in uncontrollable rage, I stabbed him multiple times." Her eyes were filled with tears, but there was no sign of remorse. "I thought creating the image of Wyatt as a betrayer and a diseased man would deflect suspicion and garner sympathy for me," she confessed, her tone cold and calculated. Elodie's confession left Gwen and Derek stunned. Gwen turned to Derek, her voice quiet but resolute. "We have enough evidence." She turned back to face Elodie and declared firmly, "Elodie Morrison, you are under arrest for the murder of Wyatt Morrison and for conspiring to obstruct justice." The statement marked the end of Elodie's attempts to conceal the truth. Elodie did not resist as the handcuffs were placed on her. Her face remained calm, as if she had already accepted her fate. Amelia and Jacob, Wyatt and Elodie's children, were drowning in grief and confusion. Each day brought the unbearable pain of losing their father, compounded by the shocking truth that their mother had been charged with his murder. Amelia, her eyes red from crying, struggled to stay strong, while Jacob sat staring at a photo of their father, as if searching for answers to this painful story. "We lost Dad," Jacob whispered, his voice breaking. "But what about Mom?" Amelia remained silent, tears streaming down her face, unsure how to confront the complex emotions swirling inside her. Elodie Morrison's trial began on February 16, 2024, at the Asheville Superior Court. The tension in the crowded courtroom was palpable. Prosecutor James Thompson began with a commanding voice. Elodie Morrison meticulously planned to kill her husband. This was not an impulsive act. It was a crime driven by jealousy, rage, and greed. He presented critical evidence: the bloodstained shirt, the $500,000 life insurance policy, and the $300,000 payment to Franklin Porter. Elodie not only sought to destroy her husband's reputation, but also conspired to seize his assets. Her actions have caused irreparable damage to her family and the community. Defense attorney Karen Lee countered, "Elodie is not a cold-blooded killer. She acted in desperation after enduring months of her husband's betrayal. This was not a calculated murder, but the response of a woman pushed to the edge." The trial grew more intense as witnesses took the stand one by one. Franklin Porter admitted to receiving money from Elodie to fabricate the false story about Wyatt Fitzpatrick. Her voice trembling, acknowledged her complicated relationship with Wyatt, but claimed she never imagined it would lead to such a tragedy. James continued to present the evidence: the blood-stained shirt with Elodie's DNA and the crime scene analysis, proving that the attack had been premeditated. The haunting images from the scene left the courtroom in stunned silence. He concluded, "This was a deliberate act, not self-defense in a moment of despair." Defense attorney Karen Lee countered, "Elodie acted in a moment of emotional distress and mental anguish. This was not a calculated plan, but the reaction of a woman pushed to the brink." She tried to appeal to the jury's compassion, but the weight of James's evidence remained central. Throughout the trial, Elodie struggled to remain composed, but her hands trembled as she listened to Callah's testimony. The two women exchanged tense glances, and in a heart-wrenching moment, Elodie broke down in tears. "I just wanted to end the pain." Outside, Amelia and Jacob sat silently, confronting the painful reality of their mother standing trial. Their eyes red and swollen, they watched their mother as if she were a stranger, torn between love and overwhelming disappointment. On February 28, 2024, the jury delivered its verdict. Elodie Morrison was found guilty of murder and obstruction of justice. The judge sentenced her to life in prison. Elodie tried to stay composed, but the deep pain in her eyes was unmistakable. The silence in the courtroom was a testament to the irreversible damage that had been done. "The defendant's actions have caused irreparable harm," the judge emphasized. Callah Fitzpatrick moved on with her life, finding solace and peace in her art. Franklin Porter, quietly retreating from public view, was determined to rebuild his reputation. "I will prove that I'm still worthy of people's trust," he said. Amelia and Jacob faced the profound loss of both parents. "We still have each other," Amelia comforted her younger brother as they navigated their shared grief. Though life in Asheville gradually returned to normal, the community emerged from the tragedy united by a spirit of resilience and compassion. While the painful memories remained, the strength and endurance forged through the ordeal would forever be a part of their story. Our story today ends here. What do you think about this case? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to hit the like button and share it, so we can be motivated to create more videos in the future. Thank you for watching, goodbye, and see you next time.